So, Alolan Raticate is one of the strangest Pokemon that this generation decided to make. And not only is its appearance kind of odd, but its stat changes are strange. It actually lost 20 points in speed, 10 points in special attack, and 10 points in physical attack to gain 20 points in health, 10 in defense, and 10 in special defense, making it an extremely well-rounded Pokemon, with everything other than special attack being between base 70 and base 80. So, this actually might hurt it some, because what it really relied on in the past was its offense and its speed. Even though they neither were over 100, they were still strong enough when boosted by Guts to do some decent damage. But that was really its only time that it was useful. So without this, it really has to fill another role. It also gained a Dark typing, which means that it is weak to fighting times 4, which means it'll never take a fighting type move. But its only other weaknesses are Bug and Fairy, which is not bad in the long run. Its abilities, it kept the ability Hustle, which boosts its physical attacks by 1.5 times, but gives it only 0.8 times accuracy, which can really bite it in the butt, because even though you're stronger, you're really risking every attack you're using missing, because they're all the same as Stone Edge if they had 100 accuracy to begin with. So moves with even less are reduced by even more, so it's just very risky to run this, but it's really its only offensive ability. It also gets Gluttony, and what Gluttony does is for berries like the Lychee and Salic Berry that boost your attack or speed respectively when you drop below 25% of your health, it activates them at 50% instead, which is useful, but it's very situational, and this Pokemon may not survive a hit anyway, so usually it's not worth running Gluttony over another ability. Its last ability and its hidden ability, Thick Fat, is actually good with its stat changes, because since it's now more bulky, giving it an extra resistance to both fire and ice types is actually kind of useful, because suddenly it has 2 immunities and 3 resistances, making it, I guess, an okay defensive Pokemon, which is very surprising looking at it being a Raticate, which is literally one of the frailest Pokemon out of Gen 1. So the first set I have is a very questionable set that's surprisingly not Xurkitree, as I've decided to put it in both of my slides, but it is a Alolan Raticate with leftovers in this case, with a careful nature, max out its HP and special defense, make it as bulky on its special defensive side as possible, give it a little bit of speed, and then bulk up will be your main source of gaining stats. So because you've already maxed out your special defense, all you need to do now is boost your physical defense with bulk up, and luckily it also increases your physical attack. After that, you're going to want Stab in probably Crunch, and then either Return or Facade, depending on how often you think you're going to be statused. Return is stronger if there's no status condition on you, but if you get paralyzed, poisoned, or burned, suddenly Facade is doing 140 base power, and it's going to be much stronger even if you're burned. For your last move, I thought Quick Attack or Sucker Punch, because they're both stab priority moves, and you're not going to be fast by any stretch of the imagination, so it'd be good to have some priority, even though you're passing up on coverage. Other attacks that Raticate gets are Double Edge, which would be even stronger, but in my opinion, if you're setting up your defenses, you really shouldn't be using moves that do damage back to you. Now, if you were running something like Swords Dance instead, then Double Edge is fine. But really, when you're trying to stay as healthy as possible, it's really just hurting you as much as it is helping you with the extra damage. It also gets Revenge, which is a 60 base power fighting type move that doubles if you take damage before using it. But it's risky to run, but at the same time it's probably the best coverage option you have if you'd rather run it over priority. You also get Shadow Claw, which hits the same Pokemon as Dark types for the most part, so it's really kind of arbitrary to run and a bit repetitive. You get Reversal, so if your health goes very low, say you run a Focus Sash Raticate, it's very strong, but I don't think you're going to be outspeeding many threats anyway. You get U-Turn, which completely reverses any stat boost you get, so it's really not worth running on this set, although there is another set that it could be useful on. And finally it gets Pursuit, which you could use to catch Pokemon switching out on you, although I couldn't think of a whole lot of Pokemon that would be afraid of this slightly chubby rat. Now, the only other set that I could really think of it, again, it's not a Xurkitree, that's just a typo, I don't know why I typed that, but this is definitely Raticate because it's not that high in special attack at all. But this set is Choice Scarfed, and really it depends on whether you'd want to run Final Gambit or not on what stats you want. Regardless of which you'd rather run, the best nature is Jolly to make sure you're as fast as possible, max out your speed, and then if you're running Final Gambit, you'll probably want to max out your HP. Otherwise, you'll want to max out your attack, obviously, and then give yourself some defense. So your moves on this set will be U-turn, Double Edge, and Crunch for damage, U-turn for momentum, and then Double Edge and Crunch for your primary stabs. You could also run Switcheroo to give your opponent a Choice Scarf. If you thought they were going to switch in something bulky like a Toxapex, obviously you're going to cripple it with a Choice Scarf and make it very hard to use because it can't both do damage and heal itself without switching out, which really cuts down on its usability. You could also run Final Gambit because if you max out this Raticate's health, it's actually decently high. So if you're max health and you Final Gambit an opponent that thinks they're going to take a hit, what Final Gambit does is it reduces your opponent's health by how much health you have left, but then cuts your health down to 0. So it's kind of like self-destruct, but it's guaranteed to do a certain amount of damage. So for certain situations, like the very low health Toxapex, you could run this and really catch your opponent off guard. Now, the only other move that Raticate really gets that have any kind of interest, any kind of use, are Stockpile to boost your defenses. With Stockpile, you're not going to be gaining your offensive power like you would with Bulk Up, so you probably want to run something like Super Fang that guarantees you do half of your opponent's health when you use it. And like I mentioned earlier, you do get Swords Dance, so you can boost your attack higher than a Bulk Up could, but really I think Bulk is the central role of this rat just because of how its stat distribution ended up. It also gets Roar to phase out your opponent if they would set up on you otherwise. So, in summary, I haven't seen a lot of this rat at all as of yet, and I really think it'll have the same fate as normal little Raticate down there jerking around. But I think in its own world, where there are no super powerful Pokemon, where there are no Ultra Beast, and no Legendaries running around, this guy could have a great time. So, I think it'll be very happy in the PU tier.